Hi, folks. This is Dr. Todd. Welcome to the Dr. Todd Podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking about people-pleasing. Now, I know that term gets thrown around a lot, and there might be some confusion about what that actually means. So let's start off by talking about what people-pleasing is and what it is not. The best way to think about people-pleasing is this strong feeling of need to rescue somebody from their own discomfort or hardship, from an unconscious need to get people to recognize your value. So those are the two important components to this, right? There is this sense of urgency, this feeling of, oh my God, I got to go in and I got to do this for them. I have to make them feel better. I have to, I have to protect them or save them from their own hardship. And I want to go in and make things better for them. And what drives that is this internalized sense of not having any value. And by doing this for them, there is this unconscious desire to have them recognize your value. It's like, if I can do this for you, if I can make your life better, if I can solve this problem for you, if I can save you from your pain, then you will be able to recognize how much value I have. And that really comes from our childhood. That people-pleasing behavior really comes from our childhood. And people who engage in people-pleasing typically come from a couple of different places growing up. One is where the parents didn't really pay much attention to the kids. And attention doesn't just mean we went out and did stuff together, but there was an emotional presence with the child, between the parent and the child, where the parent would spend their time and attention being present with the kid. And as a child, if our parents spent time and their attention with us, that's what gave us this internalized sense of having value, of like, I matter because they're spending time with me and I'm important to them. And so we develop this internalized sense of self-esteem. When our parents don't do that, when they're so busy with their own lives that they really don't pay attention to us, or worse, are shaming and belittling and things like that, then our own sense of self-worth it just doesn't really develop very well. So we will enter into adulthood oftentimes with this just deep-seated feeling that there is something about me that is unlovable at some level. And one of the ways that can show up in relationships and show up in how we interact with the world around us is that because that need for a sense of value is one of our core needs as human beings. We need to feel as though we matter. We need to feel as though we are valued by our family, by our community, by the people around us. And when we grow up without that feeling, we enter into adulthood with this need to satisfy that. And so one of the ways that we try to get that need met is through people-pleasing behavior, where we will try to save every kitten, and whether that's figuratively or literally save every little kitten. But figuratively, it's like if there's an organization and they need a something, it's like, oh well, I'll give them mine, or I'll go out and give money to blah 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 because they need it. And often we will give and give and give and give and give until we just are completely depleted ourselves. And we give out of this need to have other people recognize our value. And this is the pattern of people pleasing is so hard to recognize in the moment when you are doing it. In hindsight, it's really easy to see. It's like after I've just gone overboard and done all of this stuff for some organization that I barely know, or somebody on the street, I just gave them a whole bunch of stuff that I could have used myself, or I felt like, in partnerships, a lot of times it's like rescuing the bad boy. It's like, oh, nobody loves him, I want to save him from his pain kind of thing. That is all forms of people-pleasing behavior. And we rarely recognize it when we start doing it, because that impulse to go and rescue, to go and solve a problem so that other people don't feel pain, so that other people aren't struggling, in a way we're kind of trying to save ourselves. This is kind of a mirror of what we wished our parents had done with us, right? We wished that when we were struggling, somebody would have come and seen us, and somebody would have come and supported us, and somebody would have shown us that we matter. And so in adulthood, we kind of follow that same pattern where, when we see somebody who's struggling, there's almost like this identity with our own struggle and kind of some of the feelings that we had as children when we felt as though we were alone in our pain and no one was there for us, and that no one was there to support us. Nobody would spend time with us. Nobody would help to support us and help us try to fix our problems, right? Children are in a very dependent place when they're growing up, and we rely on adults, on the grown-ups, on the big people to come in and rescue us from situations, whether it's, whether we're, we got left behind and we're alone. It's the parents that have to come in and rescue us. When we're in trouble, it's the parents that have to come in and rescue us. When we need, all our friends are going to the movie and we don't have any money, it's the parents that come in and rescue us. It's the parents that come in and provide us with the resources and the attention and the time in order for us to feel valued and okay. And it's that same type of thing that we who do that kind of behavior, that people-pleasing behavior, we are essentially in a symbolic way trying to do the same thing for others, whether it's organizations or people or the homeless or kittens or whatever. There's just this sense of like, I have to go in and rescue them. I have to show them that they are loved. I have to save them from their distress, in much the same way that we wanted our parents to do that for us. And in the moment, it is really hard to identify when that kind of that sense of urgency comes up from our gut and just like, oh, I feel like I have to go. There's almost like this imperative, this sense of, oh, that poor person, that poor organization, that, oh, they're struggling, oh, they're frightened, and I have to drop whatever I'm doing. I have to sacrifice other parts of my life or myself to go and save them from their distress. Now, parents are expected to do that. They're expected to drop what they're doing and come to school and, take us home when we're sick and help us feel better. Or when we, if we got into some kind of altercation and we need somebody to advocate for us, that's what parents are expected to do. When we are adults, it is not necessarily our job to do the same thing for other adults or for organizations or for things like that. It is for our children, right? We have to sacrifice in order, and even if we have to give up our vacations and financial stability and all of those kinds of things for the benefit of our own kids' well-being, that is a very different situation than people-pleasing behavior. What usually happens when somebody is engaging in people-pleasing, there's this moment where something switches. There's like a little emotional inflection point where we have no thought at all of helping a particular person, situation, puppy. And then there is a moment when we feel something shift. We feel something usually shift in here, and it's almost like there is this attraction. It's almost like there is this pull, this feeling of pull toward them, as though we now have to get involved in their situation and get involved in their life in a way to try to save them from their distress, save them from not being able to, the church not being able to get their sound system, or, the puppy who is on the street and we have to take them home, or, the homeless person who we will give everything to, or whatever. There is this sense of gravitational pull toward them. And that shift, that little inflection point where we feel almost that sense of pull toward that other person, puppy situation, whatever it is, when we feel that pull, that is the signal that we need to pay attention to, that we are about to engage in people-pleasing behavior. Because it is different from seeing, a commercial where United Way is, trying to raise some money for hurricane relief. And we're just like, yeah, I heard it kind of is tough down in North Carolina or wherever. I can write out a check for $25 and send it to them. It's no big deal. That is a very different thing. It's very different from, kind of a philosophical, philanthropic sort of thing where you're like, there's value in helping, kids who live in poverty have access to education, have access to nutrition, have access to clothing and things like that. And it is, because of my own success, I feel some sense of responsibility for giving back. And, so I'll chip in a little bit, here and there in ways that, may help them, but it's not necessarily driven by that sense of pull where all of a sudden it's like your problems become my problem to solve. Your distress now becomes my responsibility to solve. Your loneliness now becomes my responsibility to solve. And that is one of the other key characteristics of people-pleasing behavior is not only is there just this sense of gravitational pull, but there is also this internalizing a sense of now it's my job to make sure that the bad boy doesn't feel abandoned and that nobody ever loved him. And so now it's my job to show him love so that he'll finally feel happy and secure and loved, and then he'll transform into this wonderful guy, right? And that's one of the manifestations of people-pleasing behavior, right? Another one is just like all of a sudden you just hear about a random organization that is starting and struggling, and all of a sudden there's this, I can help. And suddenly there's, your struggle has now become my struggle, and I'm joining in with you, and I will go over and above in order to make you successful, in order to make you happy, and to give whatever I can give, even if it hurts. And when we do that, we are no longer an active agent in our own lives. We are losing our ability to set and maintain a healthy boundary. That sense of self and other all of a sudden starts to become permeable and starts to disintegrate, where now we start identifying so much with the other person's anxiety and the other person's or organization or puppy, their distress, that now it is ours to solve. And when we engage in people pleasing, we are oftentimes going in and doing things for people that they didn't ask us to do. In fact, I had a friend one time who was really struggled with people pleasing behaviors in a big way, and there were times when he would come over and he'd just be like, "Okay, I made you guys lunch," and it's just like, first of all, we're in the middle of stuff. I don't want lunch, and why did you make us lunch without even asking us, like, if we wanted lunch or what we would do? But he was so afraid that we would say no. And he wanted so much to feel like valued and to be recognized for doing good stuff for us, that he would do these behaviors that just seemed odd and kind of inappropriately boundaried. It was almost like he was trying to take control of our experience in our lives in a way to make sure that we had his lunch, and we enjoyed that and recognized him for doing that. And I've engaged in behaviors like that as well. I mean, I have a history of trauma, so people-pleasing behavior was something that I did for a long time. And every once in a while, I still get that little sense of pull, that little sense of urge. And as soon as I feel it, I'm like, boundary setting time. But it's something that is very, very hard to break unless we can recognize that initial pull. When we feel that sense of pull, when we feel that sense of that disintegration of boundary between us and the other, whether that's a person, puppy, or organization, right? And suddenly their problems become our problems. Their well-being becomes our responsibility. Then that is a sign that we're engaging in people-pleasing behavior. And if you want to stop engaging in people-pleasing behavior, here's what you need to do. Get a journal, get a notebook, a spiral-bound notebook, a little pocket thing, pieces of paper, it doesn't matter. But what you need to do is at the end of every day, I want you to write at the top of that piece of paper, where did I feel that sense of pull? What situation happened today where I suddenly felt like it was my responsibility to save somebody from their own distress? Or where did I feel like I needed to be the hero? Where did I feel like I needed to go in and solve a problem for somebody who may be perfectly capable of solving it themselves? But I just felt like this sense that it was imperative that I help them with that, or I save them from their own hardship or distress. Where did I do that? And what action did I take? And here's why that is important. If you become aware of when that is occurring, and writing this down in a journal at the end of the day, after a few days, whenever it starts happening, you'd be like, oh, there it's happening again. Oh, I can feel it. I felt the pull. I felt this sudden shift in interest toward this other person, or I suddenly felt this like over empathy for the struggle of this organization or this individual or this puppy. right? I felt this need to rescue. And whenever you feel that, just pause and stop and just recognize and observe that you're feeling it. Right? This is part 2. If you can recognize when it's happening in the moment, and you can just stop and just recognize that you are experiencing that, and just say to yourself, just like, oh, I feel that pull happening, right? I feel that people-pleasing pull. I feel that sense of now all of a sudden this is my responsibility to fix this situation, or to make the bad boy feel better about themselves, or, to rescue the girl who's struggling, or whatever. As soon as you feel that, just being able to pause and observe that, and just don't do anything, don't say anything, just recognize that you're feeling that. And if you say anything, you can say to yourself, I feel that pull happening right now. And it can be really hard to not volunteer or to not reach out and try to rescue the other person. Sometimes it feels like you're trying to stop a sneeze, because that emotional pull is so primal, and it really stems from that need that we had as children to have our parents there for us and to rescue us and to help us, save us from our distress, that now in adulthood, that pattern is playing out in our lives. But unlike a parent to a child, where the parent coming in and rescuing that child and being present for that kid and helping them, taking on their problems as their own problems, while that is healthy for a child, because it helps the child learn how to navigate the world and helps the child feel some sense of value. It is not healthy to do that in adulthood, because when we do that in adulthood, we are engaging in a form of self-destructive behavior. Actually, that is a mirror from what we didn't get as children. So the bottom line here that I want you to remember, and you'll hear in my podcasts all the time that it is all about the action that you take, right? Like, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. What matters is what you do, because if you do the right thing, you're going to create different experiences. And over time, that's going to create momentum in a healthier way. And so in this instance, when you are engaged in people pleasing, if you recognize that this is a pattern for you, the step 1 to do is at night, get out a notebook and just take a little inventory. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. You can just jot down, today when I was at the store, I saw this little kid upset. And there was just this part of me that just felt like I had to come in and rescue. Or I saw a homeless man, or I saw, I was talking to my cousin, or something happened, and I felt this pull to go in and rescue them. Just jot that down. Do that every night. And I guarantee you, if you do that every night and you legitimately go through your day and you try to identify times when you have felt that, and if you do a lot of people pleasing, you may come up with a lot of times during the day when you felt that way. What will eventually happen is, in the moment, you will be able to identify that better. Then in the moment, when you feel that sense of pull, when you feel that sense of needing to rescue, just observe that and don't say anything, even though you may really, really want to. The temptation is going to be really hard to inject yourself into that situation, and just don't observe. And if you have to tell yourself anything, or if you have to say anything, just say out loud, I feel that trigger happening, or I feel that pull happening, and I'm just not going to engage in that right now. And if you if you do that, just observe and just don't engage, eventually you'll start to, that pattern will start to break. Because the more you engage in that, the more it becomes hardwired in the brain. And if you start taking a different approach, that you can recognize that pattern happening, you just observe it, but don't engage in it, then over time you'll become much less of a people pleaser, and you'll start to break that habit. So I hope you found this podcast helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.